Hello everyone, welcome to Camel Workshop. This is Varsha. So in today's workshop we are going to paint this lotus. So first let's look at the materials that we'll be using. I am using 10 by 12 stretch canvas by Camel. Then we will be using Artist Acrylic set of 14 shades. So this particular set has two new colors, which is gold and silver. For brushes, we'll be using Camel flat brush set. First of all, we'll start with the pencil outline. Also notice in the shape, all the petals are not of same size and shape. Only the front ones are slightly bigger, and all the other petals that we are going to paint are slightly smaller. So this is the brush that we are using, size 12 flat brush, and the color that we are using is black color. For the smaller sections, we are using Camel size 1 flat brush. So first let's do the outline over here with the smaller brush, and then we'll fill in the remaining section. So here we'll color in the entire base first and then add in the details. Whenever you are working with acrylics, make sure you are starting with the darker value, then adding the middle tones and highlight. So when you do a darker layer, it helps you to add in the base. Also, the darker the base, the better depth will be added to your painting. So basically we have done the outline with smaller brush. Now to cover the area more quickly, I am switching to a size 12 flat brush. Now here we are done with the base color. Let's just quickly outline the lotus petals. So for that, the color that we are using is burnt sienna. The brush that we are using is a round brush size 00. Coming on to the base layer for the leaves, for that we are using Viridian hue and Persian blue, and the ratio of mixing is 1:1. 1:1 means one portion of Viridian hue will be mixing one portion of Persian blue. Now as I apply this layer on the canvas, this still appears to be light. So to this color, I'll be just adding few drops of black to make it dark, because if your base is not dark enough, then when we add the lighter value on top of it, it won't be highlighted. So that's why we are keeping the base dark as we can, so it adds in the depth to your painting, as well as when we add the lighter values, they slightly stand out. We'll do the base layer. For that, the brush I am using is size 6 flat brush, and the colors that we are using are yellow ochre, just taking in yellow ochre, burnt sienna and white. So we are creating the base layer for our flower. To white color, we are adding in one portion of yellow ochre and few drops of burnt sienna. Mix it together, 2 portions of white. Now here what I am doing is, simply with a size 6 flat brush, I am coloring the entire base of the flower. So we already have done the outline, so this color tone is slightly lighter. Even if we apply directly onto the outline also, the outline section is still visible. So that's why we have added in an outline for the lotus part. Now we have done with the base for the lotus. Now To the same color, we'll keep on adding white to make the lotus petals pop. As you can notice in the reference here, you can see even if we have added like darker base, now the edges of the petal you can see are simply appearing to be white. So we are going to do that by building layers. So what we are going to do next is, to the same color we are going to add more and more white with every layer, and again we are going to use the same brush and flick our strokes downwards like this. Just take a little bit of white, mix it in the previous color that we have added for the lotus base. Now defining the center part of the lotus, for that I am using a smaller size brush, that is size 1 flat brush, and we are using burnt sienna and completely color in the center portion with burnt sienna. Now for the next layer, again taking in a smaller size brush, taking in a thick layer of white and adding in like a thick layer of white, because our base layer is already wet and it's kind of merging with white. That's why we are taking like a thick layer of white and adding in white from the edges. Repeating the same steps for all the petals. Now after this, we'll start adding details on the leaf section. Notice over here we can see every section that we are creating a lighter tone on the top, and the darker section, the bottom section, we are keeping it dark. So half of the section we are keeping it dark as in we are letting the base show through, and then we are creating a diagonal line with Viridian hue. So I am taking in Viridian hue and just flick your brush like this to create a line patch. All the lines are connected towards the center portion. Again taking in Viridian hue, adding in the stroke. Now let's just quickly add like a touch of golden in the background. So for that, the color that we are using is this gold color, and we'll be adding the texture with palette knife. Take less pigment so you have more control over your strokes, and simply just scraping your palette knife like this, creating a golden touch. Don't overdo it, just make sure you are adding in the gold in like one single stroke. Later on you can repeat in the step and apply the same technique to get in the golden on the background. I'll repeat the same process for all the edges over here. Keeping your palette knife slightly like pressing towards the canvas and just dragging it downwards. Same we are going to repeat with silver color from the bottom coming on to the leaves. Now the next step is take a size 0 brush and we'll be dabbing dots like kind of stippling effect, and using yellow ochre color to create in the dots like this. Again using the same golden color, we are going to outline the petals. Try to make the petals like thick outline with gold so that it gives like a shiny effect. Again adding some golden stipples with a size 0 brush towards the center section of the flower. Just taking in thick layer of gold and just dabbing it towards the edge of the center section. Now here towards the bottom edge of the petal, like all the petals, we are creating a darker value. So taking in burnt sienna and just adding in a layer of burnt sienna from the bottom section like this. just take a size 1 flat brush and flick in burnt sienna on one side of the petal. The bottom petals that we have painted have like two sections. One is like the smaller section and one is the bigger section. The smaller section of the petal we are flicking it with burnt sienna. Again repeating the same step by adding little bit of darker grey, and we'll be transitioning it to a lighter grey. Again from the bottom section, flicking in darker grey from the bottom, and to the same color later on we'll be adding in more white and transitioning towards the darker value. Now adding in details to the leaves, taking in Viridian hue, mixing one portion of sap green to it. The ratio is 1:2, 1 portion of sap green and 2 portion of Viridian hue. Again repeating the same step. To the same mix, just adding a little bit of white and going in for the second layer. The second layer that we do will be only on the top half section of the stroke, like this. We won't be covering the entire section, just on the left side we are adding in the stroke, like this. Now lastly what we are going to do is we are simply going to add in some highlights on the petals with white. So again taking in white, using the same size, the one flat brush, and just from the edges we are adding in a thick layer of white. So taking in white and then flicking it from the top. Again taking in white and just flicking it downwards. Also when you are adding in white, make sure the yellow ochre that we have added for the base layer is also visible, so that will help you to add in the depth to your petals. Adding highlights on the bottom petal as well. After you are done with this, you can again, if the strokes with golden are not that defined, you can just redo the strokes with a size 0 brush. Only now we have to add in few highlights on the leaves. So highlights as in simply what we are going to do is, simply with golden color we are basically going to outline the leaf section. So again taking in a size 00 round brush, taking in golden color and just outline the shape of the leaf. For creating the stem, what we are going to do is simply I am using a palette knife. I will be holding it like this, slightly slanting, and using the edge of this palette knife to create in the straight line like this. So taking in the pigment on the edge of the palette knife and then adding in the stem and scraping the palette knife like this. Now again on leaf we'll add in just a final highlight using the lighter color value. So what we are going to do is, to the same previous mix that we have created using Viridian hue and sap green, to the same color we'll add in more white, and this will be our final highlight. So just on the edge over here, not everywhere, just on the top section we are adding in the highlight. And add in few silver details on top of the leaf. So for that I am using a size 0 brush, and the sections that we have added in the highlight over there, we are going to just do a line with silver. Also scraping my brush using my fingers to smudge it off. Those who have finished in the artwork, you can tag us on Instagram, that is cocoyu.camlin, and my Instagram handle is magical palette. Thank you everyone for joining in.